Well, greetings and salutations, test takers. This is the Series 7 Guru coming to you from my off-grid studio, getting our kicks on historic Route 66. And our always special guest, the managing member of Test Geek Exam Prep, LLC, Brian Lee. We're here to help you with content on any FINRA NASAA exam, hopefully have some fun and fellowship along the way. And so we'll get some housekeeping done, and then we'll get underway, answer any questions you may have for us. Let me just get where is my boom? There we go. If you do have a question for Brian or I, it's helpful if you tell us what exam you're taking, because there's a lot of overlapping content. And the way something gets tested on the SIE versus how it gets on Series 7, for example, can be different. It's not necessary, but it's helpful if you tell us exam with a capital Q. And then we can also, it's easier for us to pick it out of the chat that you have a question. We love everybody, but if somebody's just shooting the breeze with each other, that's great. We encourage it, but it helps us pick it out. Now, if you're looking for a free supplement to your paid study materials, free, keyword free, very popular price point, supplement, another keyword, not a substitute, supplement. The YouTube channel, my YouTube channel is #1 for that. I've organized that YouTube channel by series playlist. So you find your series playlist, SIE, for example. There's 4 playlists. The playlists are in suggested watch order, and the videos are in suggested watch order. Please, I get this all the time. What should I watch first? Well, I wouldn't have called it playlist 1 unless I thought it was the first one, but that's up to you. It's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. Completely up to you about how you want to do that. Now, if you're looking for a particular topic, Brian and I, we know that we're going to get questions that have been asked and answered several different times. We're more than happy to do so. But if you go to the channel search bar and just put in whatever your question is, I just had somebody the other day, I go, just put that in there. There literally 15 videos will pop up, whether it's Brian and I in a live stream, or whether it's me explicating a question, or whether it's a tutoring replay. So if you're looking for a particular topic, margin, accrued interest, put that in the channel search bar. That's the best way to proceed. Now, this is not a time to be frugal. If you have resources, there's no better investment than an equity investment in yourself. And Brian, I think, has the best paid supplement out there. The only thing that's lacking in Brian's supplement is a lot of practice questions. He has, I think, a pretty spot on practice test, and he has some updates, addendums with, questions. But, you need to, again, paid supplement is what Brian would say, right? Keyword paid, keyword supplement. He does have some free YouTube content. But so what I would do is combine that with a Kaplan Q Bank. The Series 7, for example, you can get a Kaplan Q Bank for $55.80 with my 15% discount code. Over 3,600 questions, a performance tracker. It's very difficult to memorize the questions because there's so many of them. Combine that with Brian. Brian all in's about $100. That's his videos, and Brian is a master at distillation. So unlike me, I got like 1,600 something videos. I probably got 300 on options. Brian is very conscious about, trying to edit himself and to the mission at hand, which is to pass your exam. I told you about that PDF class notes, and he also has that practice exam all in, a little over $100. So you're looking at 150, 60 for that. Please feel free to join us. I do a weekly jam session on my channel. You can find that at deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. Where is that? There we go. It'll be Thursday, 9 a.m. Bring any questions, and you can find that at deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. Let's see what else we got going on. There you go. That's where you find that. By the way, if you do win the drawing tonight, be clear, you don't win a tutoring session at a date and time of your choice. And if you register for the jam session, that is not a date and time of your choice either, and they're not fungible. You can't call me and say, hey, I missed the jam session. How would we get together Saturday morning? No. So you go find coaching call, same thing at the booking page, hit the class tab, and you can register for your coaching call. You are not alone. Not only do we provide Guru Nation here every Tuesday night, 5 p.m. Arizona time, we have other communities. We have a Facebook community called Baby Brokers Doing Hat Tricks. Baby Brokers is a term of endearment for rookies in the securities industry. Hat trick is 3 successes in a limited time frame. I think this guy set the record, Brian. He literally took his 7 took his SIE Wednesday, his 7 Monday, and he just finished his 66 today.
Wow.
He's a nut. I said, please don't tell anybody else you did that. Now he's, I like him too, because he kind of pretends he's not a smart guy and doesn't really have a background in this. And I think he really does. So not recommended. So that's, I think, the record for the hat trick. We also have Reddit communities. We have a Reddit for Series 6, R Series 6. We have a Reddit for SIE and Series 7, R Series 7. We have subreddit for NASAA exams, R Series 6. And we have a Reddit for 9s, 10s, and 24s, R Series 24. All right. I think that takes care of our housekeeping. Let's see what we got going on in the comment section. Hey, Dean, is retained earnings on the income statement and the balance sheet, or just the income statement? It is, well, let me answer it this way, Alexis. I don't think it's a testable distinction, but we have net income, earnings available to common. And then whatever we don't distribute as a dividend, that's retained earnings. It's a line on the bottom of the income statement. On the balance sheet, that retained earnings is accumulation of the earnings we haven't distributed. So I don't think it's a testable distinction. Please send me the QID or send me that QBank question to explication_request@googleexamprep.com, and I'll see what you're talking about. The point is, I would know that retained earnings is what we don't distribute to shareholders. Brian, your comments on that one?
Yeah, it's part of shareholder equity in a balance sheet as far as test is concerned.
Yeah, I think I would. So I haven't even seen that question, Alexis, but I'm already would take exception with it, no matter what it looks like. And that's what I meant. I just don't think that's a testable distinction.
Except from which dividends are paid.
Well, yeah, dividend payout ratio.
That's right. And that's a balance sheet thing.
Yeah. I think it's more tested as it shows up on the balance sheet than it is that it's the bottom line of the income statement, or one of the bottom line. I've been watching reviews for about 2 months now. Passed the SIE in May, passed the 7 about 2 weeks ago, and 63 tomorrow. All right, Derek, you're on pace for the hat trick. I love it. You know, the journey of 3-0 begins with 2-0, so that's fantastic.
Yep.
Oh, that's just me. That's the link. I don't know if it works. In YouTube, I think it works. If you're joining us from LinkedIn or Facebook, I don't think that link works. But that's the link for the jam session. Well, there you go. This was my idea. Oh, Vince. Oh, the gift or gratuity rule does not apply to test geeks and gurus. And I guess people have been seeing me adding from our Bell discussion a shot in the honor of the victorious test taker. And I was telling Brian, I've had people sending me some liquor. So, and liquor is a good inflation hedge. I never think liquor goes down. And have you ever gone to like Total Wine, Brian, and been surprised at things at a lower price?
No.
I only regret that I didn't bulk up. Right? So I had Brian. So I told Brian, somebody sent me a Johnny Walker Blue. So Vince, if you're out there, thank you very much. It arrived today by FedEx. I wasn't expecting any FedEx. I thought, what's that? And then Vince, I almost broke the bottle. I was trying to get it out of the package, didn't know what it was. And, that would have been a shame. I was in Total Wine, Brian. I had a bottle of El Tesoro Paradiso. I was out walking to the counter. I dropped it. It didn't break. And then she looked at me and I looked at her and I go, that would be an interesting discussion about whose bottle of tequila that was. If it broke. I would say it's yours because that trade hasn't settled, so it's still yours. Thank you very much, Vince, if you're out there. Vince is one of my favorites over the last 12 months or so. Oh, that's me talking to Vince. He may or may not be there. I'm new here. Well, Noah, welcome. Newbies are always welcome here every Tuesday night, 5 p.m. Loving both your channels. Love it. Studying for 65. Make sure, Noah, you check out the podcast series that Brian and I did for the 65. That's playlist number 1, it gives you a nice overview. You know, in the Marines, we call it recon. And I think it's good reconnaissance through all the stuff that you're going to encounter in the 65. 4 sections. What specific chapters of the Kaplan textbook should I focus most of my time on? I don't like answering questions like that because you should know it all. Okay, now that I said that, on the regulations front, I would make sure you're good on disclosures and unethical business practices. On the investment side, I don't know what I would tell you to focus on. I would tell you that mutual funds are always heavily tested on all exams. So the difference between closed end and open end and not making breakpoint sales, certainly there. I always get Brian on 65, people who are surprised about variable annuity questions. I don't know why. I mean, so I'm kind of on debrief sometimes. I think that whatever you're not prepared for, it's on your brain and you go, oh man, I got a lot of those. You have any particular areas?
Yeah, absolutely. For everyone who's starting to 65, you and I both preach this endlessly. Download the content outline from nasaa.org. If you want to know what's on the test, there it is. All the content that you can expect to find on the exam is on that content outline. That's how my videos are actually organized, is based on that content outline. All the textbook publishers then chop those 4 areas up into 15, 18, 20 different units. But it all stems from those 4 section areas from the content outline.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, Brian is, I think, spot on that. I would not focus on a test prep vendor's chapters. I would focus on that test specification document. I would have it with me every study session. And what I would do is use it as an intellectual inventory, Noah. And, I would make sure that I put a plus, say, okay, I've owned this intellectually, time to move on. And make your way through that whole document, whether you're doing it through the textbook and the flow chart. We can see you, Brian.
No, the G got cut off.
Oh, okay. There you go. So, yeah, that was a nugget there for sure, Brian.
Yeah.
So NASA.org is where you find, Noah, the test specifications. You can also, besides the podcast that Brian and I did, I have a playlist where you can watch me go through that document and tell you what the test issues are.
Exactly. There you go.
What's up? Well, Tuesday night, Brian's in the Northwest. You can tell because he's got that redwood he turned into a whiteboard frame. What a shame. 1,000-year redwood. Now
stop. I did that.
And I'm in my off-grid location, so it's our typical Tuesday. Thank you for joining us from LinkedIn. We broadcast to LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube is our preferred platform. You can find us on all 3. Always warms my heart when I see somebody joining us from LinkedIn. Good to see you as well, Yasha. Woohoo! If you're a newbie, welcome. But we do have some regulars. Even when you pass, Brian and I know we come into your life for a reason and a season. The reason is to make your marks. The season, how long it takes. But you don't have to leave us. We get it. Certain sense of melancholy, but we do have returning victorious test takers. Always welcome. It's so good for morale when we see some of those same folks coming back. Carolyn, you were the winner, but I don't know what you won. What you won, let me, Carolyn, tell you, is a coaching call. If you go to deantenneytutoring.setmore.com, let me get that for you. You go to the class tab, Carolyn, you'll see coaching call for drawing winners. That would be you. And then you just hit the button and you register for your coaching call, and then we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. So that's what you won. You want a coaching call. As I said at the beginning of the broadcast, you did not win tutoring at a date and time of your choosing. You want a coaching call, right? So you can access that coaching call at deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. Okay, so did we ever implement you can't win 2 weeks in a row? Or can Carolyn win again tonight? I think you can, but we thought about changing it, Karen, because we have Marcel. I don't know if he's going to join us. He literally won like 5 weeks in a row, and I'm sure people think that the fix is in. I can't control the wheel of fortune that spins the lottery that does it. But 63, any quick tips? Make sure you do lots of practice tests on the 63 because that comes fast and furious at you, and you don't want to have a time constraint. So I don't usually say do a lot of practice tests. I'll bet on that one I certainly would. Brian, your thoughts?
Absolutely. Again, content outline.
Same thing.
Know your definition of persons.
We got a great video Brian made for an evening class we did called Definitions of Registrations and Persons. I will put that in the video description either today or tomorrow for you, and you can check that out. It's been very, very helpful. The other video that's very helpful is I have what's called the Mighty 90 on the Uniform Securities Act. It's 90 minutes. I tried to teach the 63 in 90 minutes. surprisingly, I think effectively, but it's usually a half a day class. Those two, I'll put in the video description. Check them out. Very helpful. Well, if you're testing tomorrow, Derek, that's a little late. Right? So, light suggestions, just review your notes. You want to make sure you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in the morning. All these NASA exams are reading exams. And I don't know about you, but when I'm tired, my reading skills are greatly diminished. And so get some sleep, as Brian does, made that gesture there, right? Get a good night's sleep. Whatever you're going to do has been done already. It's all baked into it. So the days of cramming, this goes for all exams, are over. You can't cram the night before for a FINRA NASAA exam. It's counterproductive because it just causes you to go backwards because you get tired and you need all your energy. Series 4, I love it. Juan, registered option principal in the house. Well, struggling with margin. I'll just comment on a couple of things. Juan, I think people overestimate how much they're going to have to deal with calculations of margin on both 9 and 4 rather than a general understanding, right? So, if you write a naked option uncovered, I'm going to ask you for 20% of the market value plus the premium less the out of the money amount. I think it's recognition of that formula, not can you calculate it. Now, minimum maintenance, and if this is more, that's what you're going to need, is 10% of the market value and the current premium. Now, I would add one as a series 4 in terms of strategies. You're always worried about the bad news, not so much the good news. And as a series 4, we love spreads. We love spreads because all the action takes place between the strikes. And so that margin is pretty simple. If it's a debit spread, just give me the debit, and we're done. Now, Juan, if you want to sell 10 Apple 200 calls for 9, wow. An uncovered naked call on Apple at 200. Well, as I just told you, 20% of that's going to be 40 grand. Then the premium is going to be 9. That's 49,000. It's at the money. I'm going to want 49,000 from you. Now, Juan, why would you not just take part of that money, the 9 points, and buy an Apple 215 call? Right? Maybe you pay 3 for that. So now you brought in $6,000, right? And then you can just have to give me the difference. It makes that 49, whatever I just told you, go poof. So, I would have a general understanding that why would you ever do a naked call when you can do a credit call spread, make the margin requirement go poof? This is only for 4, by the way. I don't even think what I'm discussing is important for 9. But so credit spreads are our friends. Debit spreads, we like spreads. So margin calls, initial deposits, margin calls. Well, again, I told you it only gets messy on the naked side because you buy an option, it's pretty straightforward. You pay for it. One would tell you don't underestimate supervision instead of strategies. Way more important. Your thoughts, Brian?
Absolutely. It's all supervision. It's very little about strategy and practical application. That's the 7.
If you get a hellacious, the other one thing I would add, when I have a series 4 playlist and I have advanced option strategies like butterflies and things like that, ratio rights in there, and I'll link to that in the video description as well. But one other thing I was going to say, Juan, is that, the supervision part is way more important to strategy. But if you get a hellacious option strategy, remember the T is your friend. You can reverse engineer whatever they're asking you by tracking the money in and out and then just plugging in the answers in, you'll be able to muddle your way to an answer. Can I go over the difference and how it happened in a real 65? Well, I don't know how to answer that. It's like asking Brian, what's the difference between his questions and the real 65? I'll start in general, Ken. Nobody can write questions that are exact replicas of any of these exams, whether it's Test Geek or Kaplan or Notman Marks or STC or who am I living out of the mess, Past Perfect, because they get in trouble for copyright infringement. So Brian and I aren't allowed to ask you like, hey, what was question 35? We can say, what could we have done a better job preparing you for? Now, the subject matter expert, Ken, at Kaplan is a guy named Chuck Lowenstein, and he does try to make his questions harder than the actual exam. But I wouldn't be looking for questions and how close or different they are from the exams. What you need to understand is concepts, so you can deal with any question. So, Ken, when people, whether it's they go to Kaplan and then they get STC or STC to Kaplan or Past Perfect, because of the phraseology difference, their scores have a variance, and people get upset. They go, "How come I'm doing this over here and I'm not doing it here?" I said, "Well, nobody, you shouldn't be worried about what you're scoring on a test prep vendor. You should be worried about how does that translate to the actual exam. The real test question shouldn't seem harder. If that's the case, Ken, if you missed your mark, maybe you did and you felt that way. But the variance, Ken, is usually the other way. And what I mean by that is people typically score higher on the actual exam, even though we don't get passing scores anymore. The people who are in the 60s, have passed more than they don't. We don't want you there, but so they're designed to be tougher. So you should pick up questions from your test prep vendor, Kaplan, or whoever it is, the actual exam. When that doesn't happen, Ken, what it usually is like when people tell us they got a high score and they still miss their mark, it's usually because they memorized questions and answers and didn't understand concepts. Your comments on that, Brian?
Yeah, I've got a lot of comments about this. The 65, people talk about this all the time. The 65 and 66, the NASA exams in general, seem to be a lot different than the publishers. They are. Far more than the FINRA exams, and I don't know if you've taken a 6 or a 7 or an SIE or anything, but it really doesn't matter. If you pin me down and ask me the differences between them, I would tell you that the questions on the real exam are actually a little more basic than what Chuck Lowenstein has done at Kaplan. Yet, the answer choices tend to be a bit more ambiguous, and that's where the challenge is with the answer choices. Therefore, it's really not about comparing how test questions are written, because as Dean says, it's about knowing the concepts. Because at that point in time, if you have depth of knowledge, you're then going to be able to more easily connect keywords and key terms between the test question and the answer. I think that's the key.
I totally agree with you, Brian. And like I say, even Kaplan, Chuck will have questions in the rationale. Well, you won't see this on your exam, which drives us nuts. But, it is what it is. Yasha, this is a gift from Vince. The gift or gratuity rule does not apply to test geeks and gurus. And I like a good tequila. I drink tequila, and you brought up Lagavulin. That's my scotch from Isla. And so, bourbon, whiskey, and tequila are my adult beverages of choice. I think that's pretty much it. You can't trust bartenders to make a mixologist, whatever you want to call them, to make a decent cocktail. So I find, Brian, I don't drink as many cocktails unless I'm in a bar where I go, okay, there's a guy who knows how to make an old fashioned or whatever. Then I'll give that a roll. But
it's my role to go out everywhere in Las Vegas to find the best made Manhattan.
There you go. Yasha, Lagavulin is a very smoky, peaty scotch, and I was an investor in this club, and they stock Lagavulin just for me because it's not a drink that a lot of people, scotch that most people drink. And so I came into the bar and I ordered a Lagavulin, and the bartender, and she says, "Oh, we're out." And, but we haven't reordered because nobody's drinking. I said, well, if we're out, it's probably because somebody has been drinking it. Just might be me. Then you'd think she'd get the hint, because then I walked back behind the bar and grabbed the bottle and handed it to her. And, she was a little freaked out. Then, the guy who's running the place, who I'm an investor in his club, and he said, "Tell me who it is and I'll fire him." I go, "No, Joe, it's not a story of retribution. It's a story of you should teach your people where the stuff is." So, and that was funny. We became friends, and she told me she had a guy come in, Brian, who had never had a scotch before. And she said, "Oh, we got this guy who drinks this Lagavulin." And she goes, "Dean, yeah." She said she gave him a Lagavulin, and she said, "Dean, he said it smelled like gasoline." I go, "Well, that's what it's supposed to smell like." And she goes, "I threw it out because it was corked." I go, "Oh my God.
Oh no.
Scotches don't get corked. Only things with corks wine get corked." Oh, well, fun. Hey, Dean, pass my 7. Woo! And the customary beverage.
There you go. Hello.
Good
morning, good afternoon, good night.
Good Blanco that Vince has got me. I like a Blanco where you can taste the agave. Any tips on 66? Well, yeah, I know people probably get tired of us saying this, but Brian and I are very proud
Yes.
a podcast we did for both the 65. We have another one we did for the 66. Michael, start with there. Just go through those. What do we got? 5 episodes there, Brian? Or
I think so, yeah.
Michael, here's what I don't know if Brian will agree with this, but Michael, we want people to read the book. I mean, I'm an OG. I think you should read the book. Even today, Brian, in social media, we had a guy, he was honest. He said he just did practice questions. He was taking the 24 and he was using Notman. Notman says you should read the book at least once, maybe twice. You should watch the videos. And he was honest that all he did was questions. So, we realized that maybe people are not going to read the book, or at least maybe want to put a dent in reading the book. And so our podcast series on the 65 and 66 gives you a nice overview of the terrain. Everything that you're going to encounter. I call it, in the Marines, we call it reconnaissance, kind of to see what's out there, right? And so that's what my tip would be. I'd start by just playing that, not trying to take notes or anything, just kind of take it in. And that's playlist 1, both in 65 playlist on my channel and 66 on my channel. The first playlist is Brian and I, the podcast series we did on 65, 66. I think, Brian, I'm going to pin those in our other social media communities and just say, start here. So that would be my tip. Michael, I think you're probably looking for more particular tips. I don't have them for you, other than the other tips we've already shared about test taking. Brian, do you have any tips particular to the 66?
There we go. We're back to NASA.org's content outline.
Yeah. LinkedIn. All right. What's that website again, Brian? NASA.org. Yeah. You could just put, the other thing you can do is just put series 65 test specifications or 66 test specifications, and that will come up.
Yeah.
Thanks for answering. Already listened to the podcast. There we go. Already dug into some playlist videos. There you go. I love it. Love it, Noah. That's the way to proceed. Yeah. Been doing practice for a few weeks and my score won't go up. Any tips? Well, Samantha, I'd like to know what the score is that won't go up because, we may not need it to go up. So I'd like it to be in the mid 70s. Here's a tip I give to a lot of people who seem to be stuck in the mud a little bit. Take a day off, refresh, reset, because, burnout is real and you might be just trying too hard. I had a guy today and I said, listen, I wouldn't be surprised. I said, when you come back from your vacation, I said, first thing I want you to do is a practice test. And I know this is going to sound weird, but I wouldn't be surprised if your score goes up just because your brain's laying fallow. And I think you might be a little too close to that. Now, it depends on your timing. You can't do that. We have people here tonight who are testing tomorrow. Don't refresh and reset, but that's one thing I would say is take a break. You shouldn't be doing more than one a day. Sometimes I find out that, people's score won't go up and they tell me, I did 4 tests today and I got the same score. I'm like, oh my God. So sometimes, Samantha, the issue could be you're not doing proper remediation. You're not going through your wrong answers, going back to the textbook, going back to a video and remediating. You should spend as much time remediating a practice test as doing the practice test. So I would recommend is refresh and reset, and then make sure you're doing a better job. I don't know what you're doing, so you're already doing this, but try and do a better job on remediation of each of those scores. Brian?
Yeah. We go through, and this is really important stuff. You and I go through this a lot, right? Because we want to make sure that people properly, because you're in the last 7 to 10 days before your exam, theoretically, and you're starting with the practice finals. But some people just do practice finals for the purpose of doing practice finals, right? Without, as Dean said, without proper remediation. That's the key to it. And that's oftentimes why people are stuck in that mud, right? So after the simulated exam, you run the performance tracker. Kaplan has it. I think STC has it. I think most of them have it nowadays, right? Because that will then break your score out into the different units. You find your weak areas. Use the video course on those particular weak areas. Then you can do a custom quiz. Now, I also like, because with my video course, I have class notes, and you can kind of use it as a cheat sheet as you're going through these custom quizzes. Now, it's important because you've probably already been through 1,000 of these things, 10 to 12 questions on the particular unit. You don't want to do 75 on mutual funds. It's because you're going to get too far in the weeds, right? And if you need some additional background, you can go back into the text, read a couple of paragraphs, right? In Kaplan, it's like Unit 2, Section 3. It's like 2.3. So you know exactly where in the textbook to go if you just want a reminder. So that's how you remediate these weak areas. So you take the simulated exam, you review it, and then spend the next day, next couple, 3-4 hours remediating, and then the following day you can do another simulated exam. You never take more than one exam a day.
Yeah, and Samantha, we don't know what your score is, but the other thing I would say, the guy today who I was talking to, he didn't have enough knowledge base because he was stuck below 60, and that just means he hasn't laid the base knowledge.
Wow.
So that score depends, right? If you tell me we don't know what your score is, listen, you don't have to put it in chat. The chat is not private. But I would say to you, if it's below 60, you need to stop and lay more base by reading, by watching videos, because you lack base. Below 60 means you don't know what you're being asked and you don't know what answers are being offered to you. If you're in the 60 plus range, at least you know what you're being asked and have a recognition of the answers being offered to you. So a little more data. If we had more data, maybe we could be a little more helpful on that. My number one thing I always say about margin is don't overdose on margin. Test prep vendors go totally overkill on margin. The questions on the test are very straightforward. They're mainly about documentation, the $2,000 trick, recognizing maintenance. I would say 8 out of 10 times, Juan, I wouldn't be surprised if nobody had nothing about the special memorandum account. Yes, SMA, the holding tank for your excess equity. I have a lecture. I have a class replay. You can put SMA in the channel search bar, and I don't think it goes into much. It's basically the holding tank for your excess equity. If we didn't make a special memorandum to your account for the excess equity, what would happen is the market goes down, you lose access to that line of credit. So I think you're fine on the test to think as excess equity and SMA is one of the same thing. They're not. But I don't think it causes you to miss any kind of a question on the exam. Brian, we think a lot of hours won't get wasted on margin. Now, the good news, if you understand margin, then it's, you get them all right, whatever 3 or 4 you have. I was so proud of this Merrill Lynch guy. He was working his ass off, and he deserves any question to be answered. And he was sending me all these esoteric margin questions, which I was happy to work for him. But one of the few guys who actually listened to me, I said, your time is better spent elsewhere. I mean, I'm not going to not answer your questions on margin, but you should be doing other things. And he said, okay, if that's what you think I should do, then that's what I'll do. I go, wow, okay. Somebody
I was just going to say, send them to me.
What's that?
I said, send them to me. I'll tell them, stop, no more. Here's what you need to know. Move on.
Right on. So Juan, there's 2 areas. We're just talking about getting weak when people ask us, do they have to read the book? And Brian and I say yes. Juan, if you ask me like the 1,000th time, do I need to read the book cover to cover? I might get weak and I might say, okay, Juan, you can skip the chapter on margin and you can skip the chapter on partnerships, because all test prep vendors go way overkill on both those subject areas. I mean, oh my God, Brian, don't you go nuts when people are asking us about recourse notes and how it adds to the cost basis? Crazy. 2 years. All right, Yash, you'll never leave. I love it. You're welcome forever. You're welcome to join us forever.
Wow, nice.
Donata, Carolyn, Donata. So just bring your questions to the coaching call, whatever you'd like to talk about, and that's what we'll talk about. I've been doing practice quizzes with my score 50, 60. Well, there we go. Any tips? Was that the same one? So Samantha, now we have the data point I was looking for. So I think you have a knowledge deficit problem. So, why would you, what's that thing? To repeat the same thing that leads to the same results as insanity or something like that. I forget what that saying is. But you are not in a place to begin doing practice quizzes and practice tests over and over again without laying more base knowledge. Well, you watched all my videos, but my videos are supplement. I would say, have you read your manual, your license exam manual from your vendor, right? So it's not hopeless. It's not hopeless at all. So you just gotta, you gotta let the questions go. If you've been doing quizzes for a few weeks, let it go. Spend the next week or 2 laying base, reading. If you watched all my videos, watch Brian's. I'll tell you what, Samantha, send Brian an email, brian@testgeekexamprep.com, and I'll get with Brian backstage, and maybe we'll try and help you with a scholarship or something to get you some of his videos. If you're burnt out on my videos, maybe you can watch get you some Brian videos. He's got free ones on YouTube, but sometimes you need a different voice. So I joke, Brian and I talk about this, where you fire a coach and it's just because he's lost the locker room. It's not that he's not a good coach. So my voice may not be resonating with you anymore. So you might want to change that voice, right?
There's
Brian,
one thing also, Dean, I'd like to add. If these are, let's say, custom practice quizzes, right? I think just like the margin stuff we were talking about, the 7, sometimes we go a little overboard with those custom quizzes, doing 75 questions on mutual funds. Hell, I don't know if I'd get a 70% on 75 of those.
Particularly if it's past perfect, right?
I'm kidding, of course. But they go so deep sometimes. If you've been through almost all of the unit quizzes, right? Let's then take a simulated exam just to have an inventory of where you are. I'll bet you that score is going to go up 8% at least.
Yeah,
and then you can identify the units that you're.
That's right. I noticed that you said practice quizzes, and Brian picked up on that, not a practice test. Right. So do a practice test. When you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, take a practice test, and let's see if that score is where you need to be. Maybe it will be in the mid-70s, and maybe you're just getting stud on, particularly, Brian was getting, I'm not, I'm past perfect. If I were doing their margin question, I'd probably miss, 5 or 6 of them. Right? So 66 tomorrow. I'm curious if you have some last minute advice. Well, I do. At this point, you got to be confident in the execution of your study plan, because the study plan execution part of your journey is over. You've got to be confident in yourself. Most importantly, tomorrow, you've got to be confident in your answers. Do not be changing answers. Don't suck up to the exam. I had a young lady, I said, if you're going to miss it, just miss it with confidence. Yes, that's my final answer. When I watch those game shows and they say, is this your final answer? Good test takers say, yeah, that's my final answer. Right? So be confident in your answers. Brian just gave his signal there. And, that's about getting a good night's sleep. You need your reading skills in top form tomorrow. So as much as you can, get some rest. The days of cramming, as I say the night before, is over. You need to be worried more about your psyche and sleep and those variables than anything else, right? So that's took notes on the Mighty 90. I'm proud of that Mighty 90. I think it'll get you some points. If you are watching my Mighty 90 series or my 60 minutes, check out the comments. We get a lot of debrief in the comments. We get a lot of positive, affirmations, if you will. So check out the comments as well. Yep. I think that's the same one. Did I just do that one? For a few weeks. Oh, what's happening? Is our live stream thing not working? Go. Hi, Dean and Brian. I have my 7 tests Wednesday, and these are my final exams. That's fantastic. If that's past perfect scores, I think you're good, because past perfect is bigger jerks than the real jerks. I think the variance is going to be in your favor. So I think you're going to make your mark. You still have 2 more to take. You're nervous and confident. Well, that's okay. I mean, right? If the nervousness is not debilitating, is that the right word? Debilitating to your confidence, I think you're in good shape. I don't think there's any red flags there. I like that you had a 67 and then bounce right back up into your thing. Now you're taking a 7, so you're not going to get tested on what we call the range. But I like that range, right? 67 to 77. And what would be the median, Brian? Or the mode? The mode is 77. Right. So what do you think, Brian? Are you seeing red flags there? I don't.
No, that's good, especially for past perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Past perfect is they are jerks. Just past 66. Woo! Woo! All right. Kudos, Ryan. You have now completed your test taking registration hat trick. Woohoo! You are welcome. Brian and I are always gratified when we contribute to testing victories like yours. And it looks like our reason in our season has come to a close. Yeah, that's always the goal, pass the first time. So I made a comment in our last live stream, said Satish, I hope I'm saying that correctly. But that a rocky journey sometimes has its own rewards and makes a testing victory sweeter. However, that doesn't mean we don't want you to pass the first time, right? So yeah, passing the first time is the way to go. And in fact, one of the affirmations that I have on some of my branding is I'm going to pass the first time, right? Good evening. I'm 22, old to be young again, and finishing my Master of Finance in 1 year. Wow, sounds like a go-getter. Sounds like you're a growth stock, Levi. If I were an investor in Levi, I'd feel pretty good with that investment. Done with the SIE, taking the 66, have no sponsorship. Should I get life and health next? If so, what vendor? I know there's somebody called like the Queen of Life Insurance, Levi. I'm not sure. I know nothing about insurance, so I can't be helpful there. But I do think that whatever you can do to make yourself more attractive as human capital to an employer, if you already have your SIE, you already have your 66, and you have a life and health, it depends what you're going to do. I guess I would ask, are you going for retail? Because if you are, then I'd say yes, life and health. But Master of Finance makes me think maybe you're not going to go retail. If you're not going retail, if that's not your career aspiration, I don't know if I do a life and health exam. What's your thoughts on that, Brian?
Yeah, I'd hold off on the life and health.
Yeah.
Because it depends on who you're going to go with. With a master's in finance, you're going to almost be able to name your own path.
Yeah.
And
so Levi, what we're saying is that
it's an easy exam anyway. So
I always joke, Levi, the beauty contest, you're either a judge or a contestant. And I think what Brian is saying with the Master of Finance, we don't think you're going to be a contestant. We think you'll be able to be a judge and say, here's what I come to the table with. And, I can't imagine somebody wouldn't be interested in, somebody who's shown some initiative. Hi. Thanks for joining us from LinkedIn. So there you go. Woohoo! All right. One more for the test taking registration hat trick. You've got this. You've got it. Any tips for the 63? Same tips we've been given. Let's see. What did you tell us? Friday? What's this? Tuesday? So same thing. I would go get the video, go to the channel search bar, put in definitions of persons. That's a video I think will be very, very helpful that Brian did with us on an evening. A lot of people think it contributes to their 63 testing victory. Check out my Mighty 90 on the Uniform Securities Act if you haven't already checked out those videos. Print the test specifications, NASA 63, do an intellectual inventory. Make sure you go through that and say, okay, I'm good on this. I don't know what this is. Let me look it up or Google it or, whatever, and do that. I don't see any practice test scores, but make sure you do. I would want, if I were your corporate trainer, I'm not, but if I were, I'd say, how many more practice tests am I going to see? I'd like to see at least 2 more practice tests with some scores and some remediation. Your thoughts, Brian?
Yeah, by Friday. Is that when our test is?
That's what you said. Yeah.
Okay. Well, exactly. Videos, registration, get the specifications, especially for the ethics parts, because that's the other kind of half of the 63. That Mighty 90, the Uniform Securities Act should take care of all that. It shouldn't be much of trouble after your first 2 victories.
I agree with that. Beth, man, you are spirit filled. Look at that smile, Beth. I don't know if I'd want to have an avatar with a smile like that, because if I was having a bad day, people would say, what? You're not allowed to have a bad day. 7 on Thursday. You're welcome. Let me know if there's anything else you need. We're here for you. We'll be sending you good test vibes on Thursday. So I like it. Inch by inch. Your Series 7's a cinch. Yard by yard. Your Series 7 is hard. Is it recommended to paying for the STC Series 7 class? Well, no. Why would you pay for STC when you can join Dean at Kaplan? I'm doing a Series 7 in July. I don't know when your test date is. STC is a fine test prep vendor. I'm surprised. Are you sure Notman doesn't offer a live class? Do you mean like live in person, or do you mean like live on Zoom? I would be awful surprised if Notman doesn't offer a live class in terms of Zoom. I prefer Notman to STC. They're more of a white glove for vendor, but they're all good. STC's good. Kaplan's good. Past Perfect's good. So I like class because it does bring together the issues. Carolyn, what you might want to consider is Brian considers his video courses to his videos to be a course that you would get from Brian if you were going to attend a live class with him. So you might want to consider Test Geek as well. And it's video, it's not live, but so you have lots of options there. I would just confirm that Knobman doesn't offer you. Don't want you. We were talking about getting different voices, and you don't want to be using Knobman, and then STC does it some entirely different way, and I might throw you for a loop. So I would stick with Knobman if that's already where you're at. You are welcome. Well, Brian, it looks like we might get an early night tonight. Last call. I think I got everybody. Anybody got any more questions? Last call. All right, so let's go get. Don't do it yet, Brian. I gotta go get the wheel.
I wait for your go.
Okay, all right. Just make sure you cool the jets there. All right, now when Brian's gonna write down the word for you to put in the text, wait till he finishes it because I gotta put it in the wheel, and then I'll put the Wheel of Fortune up on the board, and we'll do our drawing for the coaching call. Okay, Brian, I'm ready for you. Oh, hold on just a second. I got to choose the last name. There we go. Okay. What is it going to be?
To all my friends on the East Coast, it was 75 degrees and sunny in Seattle today. I feel for you. There's a reason why I left the East Coast 30 years ago.
Swelter. Wow. Okay. Well, you picked them words. Swelter. Got to make sure I get that right. SWELTER. Okay, so now let's go put that up for people. Boom. Share screen. Boom, boom. There we go. Okay, so Swelter it is. We got 4 entries. It doesn't matter if you put it in more than once. It's still going to only draw 1. So, but if you, Dean, I see you here. If maybe you want to re-enter it, just to make sure you're captured. When I hit the wheel, you can see your name go by, or it'll land on you, and you're the winner. So, 7 entries. Okay, last call. Last call for any questions. Last call for entering the drawing. All right, here we go. I think Derek, you might have been a little late there, my friend. Oh, maybe not. No, I saw you go by, Derek. All right, Ken. Woohoo. So, Ken, remember you go to deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. You go to the class tab, and you'll find coaching call for drawing winners, and you just sign up for that. And, I'll see you then. Bring whatever questions you have. Remember, inch by inch, your exam is a cinch. Yard by yard, your exam is hard. And Brian, you say?
Keep it simple. Stay with what you know. You take the test. Don't let the test take you.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday, 5 p.m. Arizona time. All right. Let me just see, Brian, here. We got any last minute comments? It looks like we don't. So, okay, everybody. See you Tuesday. Bye-bye.